Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we have an incredible story to share with you, one that might just change how you view the world and what comes after death. In 1995, Leon Vargas was involved in a car accident that nearly claimed his life. During this near-death experience, Leon had a breathtaking vision of the future, revealing a pivotal event that would take place in August 2022. Get ready for a journey you won't forget. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any details of this unforgettable story. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Leon Vargas, and I want to share a story that changed my life forever. It's something that happened to me years ago, but it still impacts me every time I think about it. It was 1995 on a summer night in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was 19 at the time, just about to start college, full of dreams and plans for the future. That night, my best friend Tony and I were getting ready to go to a party. It was supposed to be just another night of fun, but it ended up being the moment that split my life into a clear before and after. I was born and raised in Albuquerque, a vibrant city surrounded by mountains and desert landscapes. My parents are of Mexican descent, but I was born here in the United States. I grew up in a big, lively, and loving family. I was always the quiet one, preferring to spend my time studying and reading. Tony was the opposite, outgoing and always up for a good time. We met in high school, and despite our differences, we became inseparable. That night in 1995, I was excited about the party, but also a little nervous. It was the summer before we started college, and I knew life was about to change in a big way. Tony and I had plans to attend the same university. I wanted to become an engineer, and Tony dreamed of being a lawyer. We had so many plans, so many hopes for the future. I spent the whole afternoon getting ready for the party. I chose a simple shirt, one that I thought was stylish enough. Tony showed up at my house wearing a bright, loud shirt, totally his style. We hopped into my old blue sedan, a hand-me-down from my parents when I got my driver's license. That car had seen us through so many adventures. If I had known what was coming, would I have stayed home that night? It's hard to say. The experience was terrifying, but it also changed me in ways I never could have imagined. It altered my perspective on life, death, and everything that comes after. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, so you can understand how a simple night out turned into the most intense and surreal experience of my life. It was a typical summer night in Albuquerque. The heat from the day had faded, but you could still feel the warmth of the desert air. Tony and I left the house around 9 p.m. The streets were already buzzing with people, heading to bars, restaurants, and other parties. I remember we cranked up the car radio, blasting the Latin music that was popular at the time. Tony sang loudly, completely out of tune, and I couldn't stop laughing. We were so carefree, so happy. The party we were headed to was at a friend's house on the other side of town. It wasn't far, but we had to drive through downtown to get there. As we drove, we talked about our future plans. Tony was pumped about the idea of becoming a lawyer. He talked about how he wanted to fight for people's rights. I shared my dreams of specializing in environmental engineering. I wanted to do something meaningful, something that would help the planet. We were getting close to the city center. The lights from the buildings and streets flashed by the car windows. I remember glancing at the clock on the dashboard. It was 9:37 p.m. It's strange how certain details stick in your mind, isn't it? We were approaching an intersection, and the light was green for us, so I kept going. Everything happened so fast. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a yellow flash, a school bus barreling toward us at full speed, showing no sign of stopping. I didn't even have time to react. 1 second, we were laughing and chatting, and the next, I heard the deafening crash of metal against metal. The impact was so powerful, it felt like the air was knocked out of my lungs. The car spun around several times, and everything outside the windows blurred into a whirl of lights and colors. I heard the sound of glass shattering. It must have been the windshield. I felt something warm and wet trickling down my face, likely blood. The car finally stopped spinning, and after a brief, unsettling silence, I started hearing distant screams, horns, and sirens. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't cooperate. With great effort, I managed to turn my head and saw Tony. His eyes were still shut. I tried to call out to him, but no sound came. The pain throughout my body grew intense, and my vision began to blur. The last thought that crossed my mind before everything went black was, am I going to die? I couldn't tell how long I was out, seconds, minutes, or hours. When I regained awareness, I experienced an odd sensation of weightlessness. The pain had vanished, and it felt as if my body had no weight at all. I opened my eyes, or at least I thought I did, but I was no longer in the wrecked car. Instead, I found myself in a bright, white expanse. There was no floor, no sky, no walls, just a soft, welcoming light enveloping me. I looked at myself and realized I could see through my own form. It was as if I was made of a translucent substance, like glass but flexible. I didn't feel any temperature or need to breathe. It was an indescribable feeling of freedom. I tried to call out, but no sound came from where my mouth should have been. I no longer had a physical body, just pure consciousness and thought. It was then that I began to understand. Had I died? Was this what happens after death? Strangely, I wasn't scared. Instead, a profound sense of peace surrounded me, as if all my fears and worries had been left behind with my physical form. Suddenly, I felt a presence. Though I couldn't see anyone, I knew I wasn't alone. A voice, coming from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, spoke directly into my mind. "Don't be afraid," the voice said. "You are safe here." I tried to respond and ask where I was and what had happened, but before I could form my thoughts, the voice continued. "You are at the border between worlds. It's not your time yet. There is much for you to see and learn before you return." So I wasn't dead, or at least not permanently. A flood of questions surged in my mind, but before I could seek answers, I felt a shift around me. The white light began to change, colors appeared, and shapes started to form. It was as if the world was being painted around me. Moments later, I found myself floating above the scene of the accident. I saw my car, wrecked and strewn with broken glass. Police and ambulances had arrived, with paramedics rushing to help the injured. A crowd had gathered around the wreckage. It was surreal to witness it from above, like watching a movie of my own demise. I saw them pull my unconscious body from the car and Tony being placed on a stretcher. I wanted to scream, to tell them I was okay, but I knew no one could hear me. As I observed, I felt a gentle pull, signaling it was time to go. I didn't know where, but I knew I was about to embark on an extraordinary journey, whether of life or death. As I was drawn away from the accident scene, I sensed a presence beside me. I turned, or at least directed my consciousness, and saw something I will never forget, a being of light. Calling it an angel seems inadequate, but it's the closest description. It had a humanoid form made entirely of light, without the traditional wings or halo. It was a radiant, welcoming presence. The being appeared to be around 30 years old, if age can be applied to such an entity. It wore a tunic of bright beige that radiated warmth and comfort. Its eyes were like two intense points of light, not blinding but full of profound wisdom and unconditional love. The being's face held a gentle smile that made me feel completely accepted and understood. Its long, silky hair cascaded like liquid gold, and its skin, if you could call it that, emitted an aura of pure perfection. When the being communicated, it wasn't through words but through thoughts directly in my mind. "Welcome," said the being. "I am here to guide you on this journey." I tried to respond and ask questions, but I quickly realized that my thoughts and uncertainties were already understood by the guide. "You likely have many questions," the guide continued. "It's only natural after such a traumatic event. You found yourself in a realm beyond your current comprehension. But don't worry, I am here to lead you and show you things few are privileged to witness." I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and love emanating from my being. It was so pure and intense that it almost felt painful. Tears, or their spiritual equivalent, started to flow down my ethereal face. "Why me?" I managed to ask mentally. "Why am I having this experience?" The guide smiled even more warmly. "Every soul has its own path. Some need certain experiences to grow and understand deeper truths about existence. You were chosen because you have a significant role to play in the future. What you see and learn here will not only shape your life, but could also impact many others." I was taken aback and a bit frightened by this revelation. The idea of having an important role seemed hard to grasp. The guide must have sensed my unease, as his light became even more soothing and reassuring. "Don't worry about the responsibility right now," he said. "Everything will become clear in time. For now, just watch and learn. Are you ready to begin?" I hesitated for a moment, but then a newfound courage welled up inside me. I nodded, or at least I thought about nodding. "Very well," said the guide. "There's much to see." And with that, we started moving. It wasn't walking or flying in the usual sense. It felt more like space itself was shifting around us. We were about to embark on a journey that would forever alter my understanding of life, death, and everything in between. As we progressed through the ethereal space, a glimmering form appeared in the distance. At first, it seemed like a mere speck on the horizon, but as we approached, it became clear that it was a city, though not one of the ordinary kind. This was a metropolis made entirely of light. Imagine the most impressive skyscrapers you've ever seen, but built from a material resembling liquid crystal, glowing with all the colors of the rainbow. The buildings didn't seem solid like those on Earth. They undulated gently, as if they were alive. Bridges of light connected the structures, and what looked like vehicles of pure energy zipped between them. "What is this place?" I meant to ask my guide. "This is one of the many cities on the spiritual plane," he replied. "Here, souls who have completed their earthly journey come to rest, learn, and prepare for their next experiences." As we got closer, I saw figures moving through the city. They were beings of light with vaguely humanoid forms. Some were gathered in groups, while others seemed to be in solitary contemplation. The souls here didn't have physical bodies as we know them. Instead, they took on forms based on their memories and self-identity. I noticed that some of these figures appeared brighter and more defined than others. When I asked about this, my guide explained, "The glow you see reflects each soul's level of spiritual evolution. The more evolved the soul, the brighter and more defined its form." We passed through what looked like a vast park, but instead of trees and grass, there were constantly shifting forms of energy that changed colors. It was as if nature itself was alive and conscious. "This is a place of healing and renewal," my guide said. "Souls come here to recover from their earthly experiences." As we continued through the city, we passed structures that resembled schools or universities, where groups of souls were gathered, seemingly absorbing knowledge in a way I couldn't fully grasp. "Learning never stops," the guide explained. "Even after leaving the physical plane, souls continue to evolve and gain wisdom." At one point, we saw a massive amphitheater filled with thousands of beings of light. They were all focused on a central figure that radiated an intense light, almost too bright to look at directly. "What's happening there?" I asked. "That is a very evolved soul sharing knowledge and experiences," the guide answered. "We might call him a spiritual master." And with that, we continued our journey through the luminous city. Each new place we visited filled me with awe and curiosity. There were areas that resembled laboratories where souls interacted with energies and forces beyond my comprehension. We also came across spaces that looked like art galleries, but instead of physical art, the displays were composed of light and pure emotion. "Creativity and expression are central here," my guide explained. "Every soul has the chance to explore and develop their talents and passions." Despite the vibrant activity and movement, I noticed an overwhelming sense of peace pervading everything. There was no sense of urgency, stress, or conflict. "How is this possible?" I asked. "On Earth, such a bustling city would be chaotic." My guide gave a reassuring smile. "Here, each soul is aligned with its greater purpose. There's no ego or desire for dominance. Everyone collaborates for the common good and their own evolution." The idea of a society built on cooperation and mutual growth, free from the conflicts and complications we face on Earth, was astonishing. As we were preparing to leave the city, my guide turned to me and said, "Remember, what you've seen here is only a glimpse of what's possible. Each plane of existence has its own marvels and challenges. This city represents what souls can achieve when they work in harmony." I nodded, deeply moved and transformed by what I had witnessed. Yet, I had a feeling that our journey was far from over. There was so much more to explore and understand. Leaving the city of light behind, we moved towards a new landscape. To my left, An expansive field stretched out, but it was unlike any ordinary field. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, filled with vibrant colors and pure, innocent energy. The sky above was an impossible shade of blue, deeper and more vivid than anything on Earth. Fantastical clouds floated lazily, shifting colors smoothly from pink to gold to lavender. On the ground, what appeared to be grass was actually a myriad of tiny lights, rippling like a sea of stars. Each movement created waves of color that spread in all directions. What caught my attention most were the children, dozens, maybe hundreds of small forms of light running and playing across the field. Their laughter was like music, creating visible waves of joy that spread through the air. "What is this place?" I asked, amazed. "This is the Field of Innocence," my guide replied. "It's a sanctuary for the youngest souls, a place for rest and healing." As I looked closer, I realized not all the shapes were human children. There were also what seemed to be baby animals, glowing puppies chasing ethereal kittens and small, radiant birds flying in graceful formations. "Do all life forms have souls?" I asked, astonished. My guide nodded. "Every consciousness, every form of life has its own divine spark. Here they all coexist in perfect harmony." Then, something particularly touching caught my eye. A group of light children playing with what looked like a large glowing dog. The animal radiated warmth and protection, and the children laughed joyfully as they climbed onto its back. "That's a spirit guide," my guide explained. "It takes on a form that is most comforting for children." We continued to watch scenes of pure joy and innocence. I saw light children building castles from what looked like starry sand, and others dancing in circles, creating intricate patterns of light in the air. "Why do some souls come here instead of the city we saw earlier?" I asked. "Each soul has unique needs," my guide replied. "Some, especially those who have experienced short or challenging lives on Earth, need this environment of pure innocence and joy to heal and prepare for their next journey." I thought about all the children who die young on Earth, due to accidents, illness, or violence. It was comforting to know that there is a place like this waiting for them, a place of peace and renewal. As I pondered this, I noticed something intriguing. Occasionally, one of the light children would blink and momentarily disappear before reappearing. "What's happening to them?" I asked. "Oh, you noticed," said my guide with an approving tone. "Some of these souls are preparing to reincarnate. When they blink, they're making brief visits to the physical plane, getting acquainted with their future parents or surroundings." The notion that souls could come and go between realms, preparing for new lives, was both fascinating and comforting. Before we left the Field of Innocence, my guide reminded me, "Remember, the purity and joy you witnessed here exist at every level of existence. On Earth, it may seem hidden, but it is always there, waiting to be rediscovered." I nodded, deeply moved, as we left the glowing field. The laughter of the light children echoed in my mind, a reminder of the pure joy that transcends earthly understanding. Our next destination filled me with excitement. Before us appeared a colossal structure that resembled a library, but on a scale beyond imagination. The building was crafted from a crystalline material that reflected and refracted light in extraordinary ways. Its towers seemed to merge with the sky, and large doors of pure gold opened silently as we approached. Inside, I was left metaphorically breathless, as I no longer had a physical body to breathe with. The interior was even more impressive than the exterior, with endless aisles stretching in every direction, filled not with books, but with what appeared to be scrolls of light. "Welcome to the Celestial Library," said my guide. "Here, every life, every thought, every action of every soul is recorded." I was astonished. "You mean every person who has ever lived has a record here?" "Not just people," my guide clarified. "Every conscious being, every form of life, from the smallest bacteria to the most complex civilizations in distant galaxies, has its record here." I looked closer at one of the scrolls. It glowed softly, and as I concentrated on it, images began to form in my mind. It was like watching a movie of someone's life, but not just the external events. I could sense the thoughts, emotions, and motivations behind each action. "Is this someone's life?" I asked, amazed. "Yes," replied my guide. "Each scroll contains the complete story of a soul, their past lives, the lessons they've learned, the challenges they've overcome, and those yet to come." I noticed beings of light moving around the library. Some were studying the scrolls intently, while others gathered in groups to discuss what they had read. "Who are they?" I asked. "These are more evolved souls," my guide explained. "They come here to study and understand the patterns of existence. Some are preparing to become guides for other souls, while others are planning their next incarnations." As we walked among the shelves, I continued to be amazed by the vastness and significance of what lay before me. As we continued exploring the library, we came across sections filled with the histories of entire planets and civilizations that had risen and fallen over billions of years. "How is all this information stored?" I asked, astonished. My guide gave a smile, or at least that was the feeling I got. "What you're seeing is just a representation your mind can grasp. This library exists outside the boundaries of time and space as you know them. All knowledge and information coexist here simultaneously." We moved to a different section where the scrolls appeared to be incomplete, with parts still coming into view. "This is the Lives in Progress section," my guide explained. "These records pertain to souls who are currently incarnated." Curious, I asked, "Is my record here?" "Yes," replied the guide, "but you're not allowed to see it now. Knowing too much about your future could interfere with your free will and the lessons you still need to learn." I understood and felt a deep sense of awe as we continued. The library contained the entire history of existence, every triumph, every tragedy, every lesson learned and yet to be learned. Before we left, my guide reminded me, "Remember, Gale, every action, every thought, every choice is recorded here, not for judgment, but as part of the grand tapestry of existence. Every life is valuable, and every experience matters." With those thoughts lingering, we left the Celestial Library. The experience had profoundly impacted me, and I knew it would change how I lived my life going forward. My guide then led me to a place unlike anything we'd seen before. It felt like we were drifting through a cosmic void, surrounded by distant stars and nebula. "What are we seeing next?" I asked, feeling both eager and anxious. "Now, Gale, you'll get a glimpse of the future," said my guide. "But keep in mind, the future isn't set. What you'll see are possibilities based on humanity's collective choices." Before I could ask more, the space around us shifted. It was like watching a 360-degree movie, but far more vivid and immersive. Scenes flashed by rapidly, decades and centuries compressed into moments. I saw futuristic technologies, floating cities, flying cars, and people teleporting. But I also witnessed disasters, devastating wars, climate crises, and pandemics. "It's a lot to take in," my guide observed, noticing my overwhelmed expression. "Let's focus on a specific point. Look at August 2025. As I focused, the images slowed, revealing more detailed scenes. It was summer, and the world was in turmoil. I saw protests erupting in major cities, people demanding change, and world leaders in heated debates. Then, an event occurred, whether natural or man-made. It shook the world and plunged everything into chaos. But then something extraordinary happened. People from all corners of the globe, across races and cultures, began coming together. It was as if the event had sparked a global awakening. "What's happening?" I asked, amazed. "What you're witnessing is a potential turning point for humanity," my guide explained. "A moment when people recognize the need to unite to tackle their challenges." I continued to watch, captivated. I saw rapid innovations, new clean energy sources, technologies to restore oceans, and medical breakthroughs curing once untreatable diseases. The most remarkable change was in people themselves, a newfound sense of unity and shared purpose. "Is this really going to happen?" I asked, torn between hope and skepticism. "As I mentioned, Gale," my guide replied, "the future isn't fixed. What you're seeing is a possible path that humanity could follow, but it depends on the choices each person makes every day." I watched in awe as the scenes continued to unfold. I observed remarkable progress in understanding human consciousness, with people developing abilities once thought to be supernatural. Space exploration had also taken huge leaps, with humans setting up colonies on other planets. Yet, not everything was flawless. There were still challenges, conflicts, and issues to address. What struck me was how differently people seemed to handle these problems. "Why am I seeing this?" I asked my guide. "Why show me this particular future?" My guide took a moment to think before answering. Every soul who undergoes an experience like yours has a distinct purpose. Some are meant to drive significant changes in the world, while others impact those around them in subtle yet crucial ways. What you're witnessing is a reminder of the potential that exists not only for humanity as a whole, but also for you personally. I began to grasp the message. So if I return, should I work towards making these things happen? Not exactly, my guide responded. Your role isn't to impose a specific future. Instead, it's about living with awareness, making choices guided by love and understanding, and inspiring others to do the same. Often, profound changes start from the simplest actions. As the visions of the future began to fade, we once again found ourselves in the vast cosmic expanse. I took a moment to absorb all that I had seen. There's one more thing you need to witness, my guide said, something more personal. The stars around us began to shift, forming a new scene. This time I saw a vision of myself, older, perhaps 20 years into the future. I was on stage in an auditorium, addressing a large audience. Although I couldn't hear my words, I could sense the impact they were having on the crowd. This is one of many potential futures for you, Gail, my guide explained. A future where you use your experiences to guide and inspire others, fostering positive change. The scene shifted again, and I saw other versions of myself. In one, I was a scientist focused on developing sustainable technologies. In another vision, I saw myself as a teacher, then as an artist whose creations deeply moved people. Remember, Gail, my guide said as the scenes began to fade, the future is not set in stone. What you choose to do with the insights and experiences you've gained here is entirely up to you. I stood in silence, feeling the weight of what I had witnessed and the responsibility it entailed. Despite this, a powerful sense of hope and determination surged within me. I felt ready to embrace whatever role awaited me. As the experience of glimpsing the future subsided, I sensed a subtle shift around me. The vast expanse of the cosmos started to recede, signaling that our journey was nearing its end. It's time to return, Gail, my angelic guide said, his voice blending warmth with gravity. I was overwhelmed by mixed emotions. On one hand, I was profoundly grateful for everything I had seen and learned. On the other, the thought of leaving this realm of light and knowledge filled me with an unexpected sadness. Do I really have to go back? I asked, surprised by my own hesitation. My guide smiled compassionately. Yes, Gail, your journey on Earth isn't over yet. There is still much for you to do, to experience, and to learn. I nodded, understanding the wisdom in his words, though a pang of sadness lingered in my heart, or whatever the spiritual equivalent might be. What will it be like returning? It will be a transition, my guide explained. You will start to feel the weight of your physical body again. It might be a bit uncomfortable initially, but it is a natural process. As he spoke, I began to feel the lightness of my journey giving way to a new heaviness. It felt as though an unseen force was pulling me back to Earth. Remember, Gail, my guide's voice grew faint. You will carry the essence of this experience with you, even if the details blur over time. Trust your instincts, follow your heart, and always cherish the love and light you've encountered here. I tried to thank him, but found that I could no longer form words. The sensation of heaviness increased, and I began to experience physical pain that I hadn't felt since the accident. The images around me dissolved, obscured by encroaching darkness. Panic surged as I feared losing my connection to that realm of light and returning to the physical world with its limitations. Then, amidst the darkness, I felt a final wave of love and reassurance from my guide, an unspoken support that comforted me. I relaxed, allowing myself to be drawn back. The transition was swift yet seemed to stretch on forever, as if I were falling through layers of reality, each bringing me closer to my physical body. Suddenly, I opened my eyes. The bright light made me blink repeatedly until my vision cleared, revealing a hospital room. The smell of antiseptic, the steady beep of machines, and the rough feel of the sheets against my skin hit me all at once. I tried to move but felt a sharp pain, a harsh reminder of the accident. Yet I was alive, and I had returned. A nurse entered, saw that I was awake, and quickly summoned a doctor. Soon I was surrounded by a medical team, all asking questions and checking my vitals. Their voices were distant as my mind lingered on the vivid images and sensations of my journey. I knew I had experienced something profoundly transformative, something that would forever alter my life. As the doctors continued their work, I closed my eyes for a moment. In the darkness behind my lids, I thought I saw a fleeting flash of light, a final, gentle signal from my angelic guide. I opened my eyes again, prepared to face whatever lay ahead. My return to life was just beginning. I spent several weeks in the hospital recovering from my accident. This time was filled with physical pain, but also deep reflection. Each day, the vivid memories of my near-death experience began to blur, like a dream slipping away as I awoke. Yet the essence of what I had experienced and the lessons I learned remained with me. The doctors were amazed by how quickly I recovered, calling it a medical miracle. But I knew there was more to it. It felt as if every cell in my body had been revitalized, energized by the light I had encountered on the other side. Lucas, my friend who had been in the car with me, survived but faced more severe injuries. He remained in a coma for several weeks, and when he woke, he had no memory of the accident or the days leading up to it. I couldn't help but wonder if he had had a similar experience, but he couldn't recall anything. When I was finally discharged, I returned home with a fresh outlook on life. Material concerns like money and status seemed trivial compared to what I had seen and felt. I began to appreciate small things I had previously overlooked. The beauty of a sunset, a stranger's smile, the rustle of wind through the trees. Each moment felt precious, and every interaction became an opportunity to share love and understanding. My future plans shifted dramatically. While I still intended to go to college, my focus changed. Instead of chasing wealth and status, I sought ways to make a positive impact, to help others, and to promote the unity I had glimpsed in the future. I started meditating regularly, trying to reconnect with the peace and unity I had experienced during my spiritual journey. Occasionally, during these meditations, I would have insights that felt like echoes from that other plane of existence. My family and friends noticed the transformation. Some thought it was just a phase or a reaction to the trauma, while others were intrigued and sought my perspective. I shared the lessons I had learned about love, compassion, and unity, explaining how every action and choice impacts the broader picture. Reactions varied. Some people understood, while others were skeptical. Still, I felt I was planting seeds that might one day blossom. As time went on, I developed a strong intuition about the future. I had a sense that something significant would happen on August 10th, though I didn't know exactly what. As I prepared for this day, I continued to live as fully as possible, trying to weave the lessons I had learned into my daily life. I understood that the future wasn't fixed, but depended on the choices we all make. Looking back on that summer night in 2022, I see how an event that could have been merely tragic became the most transformative experience of my life. The accident that nearly ended my life instead gave me a new perspective on truly living. While I can't predict the future for myself or the world, I know that each of us has the power to make a meaningful difference and to contribute to a better world. With this certainty, I embrace each new day, grateful for the second chance and determined to use it well. My near-death experience may have ended that night, but my true journey, living with purpose and love, was just beginning. What did you think of this incredible story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to stay updated with each new video. Let's spread the hope that there is life beyond what we can see.